Customer expectations are evolving fast, and AI is reshaping how businesses engage with them. Instead of just static rule-based interactions, AI-driven tools are enabling more personalized, dynamic, and intelligent customer experiences. Today, we'll explore how AI-first solutions are transforming engagement across industries. To break it all down, we again have an incredible panel of industry leaders who are driving this change. Can we have a huge round of applause for our panelists? Our first panelist is Kelvin Nguyen, Field CDO at Scientific, Joshua Rubin, Principal AI Scientist at Fidger AI, Gopal Ranganathan, Senior Director Data and Analytics at Anywhere Real Estate. Can we have a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen? And this session will be moderated by Parag Srivastava, Head of Data and Analytics Portfolio Global Director at HP Enterprise.
How are you?
Hello all, good afternoon, or rather good morning. Actually, it's a pleasure and honor to be part of moderating this esteemed group of my colleagues here, who will be providing insights into one of this fascinating topic around customer interaction and customer engagement with AI and how it is evolving. So wonderful to have Kelvin here, Gopal, and also Josh. And we'll go over the panel as such. But I'll begin with our panelists per se to start with, like, as you look at your customer base, how is AI? Are you seeing how is AI transforming some of the businesses that you currently have, or the customer engagement that you currently have?
So for us, I'm responsible for, let's say, Middle East. And when you look at a geo like that, I think what we're seeing is this change in internet or wireless, what we saw in Asia and other places where they can leapfrog to the next technology because they didn't quite catch the previous wave. And with all this cultural knowledge and language and all these issues, what we're seeing is AI and this language localization and all that interaction is not going to be optional. It's going to be a must-have. Just because they don't have a choice, they're not going to train all that workforce to be English speaking or Chinese speaking. But AI kind of just solved those problems. So it's just like enterprise first kind of thing for us and for the things that I'm looking at, for the kind of business opportunities, those customers have to think AI.
Wonderful.
I'll start with the disclaimer that one of the previous panelists mentioned. Opinions are my own, not representative of my company. With that said, the company I work for is the biggest residential real estate company in the US with a global footprint. We have multiple customer segments. One is the direct customer who is trying to buy or sell a house. The second one are the agents who help customers buy or sell a house. And the third one are the franchisees who are small businesses, use our brands to help customers buy or sell a house. From a customer engagement perspective, if you look at all three segments, they are trying to leverage AI to help themselves, whether it's an end customer trying to find the right house or trying to find the right buyer to buy or sell a house. For agents, it's about, hey, can I have increased my volume of sales? Can I get the customers to find the right house quickly? And for the owners, it's all about, hey, can I help my business, small business, increase volume get increased customer satisfaction. So it's basically like everybody is experimenting across all of the segments, and it's about managing their expectations with their experimentation.
Wonderful. Josh?
Yeah, let me start by sort of caveating my comments with the fact that Fiddler AI is an observability platform. So we're in the space of providing tools to help organizations deploy all kinds of AI, predictive as well as generative AI, in a responsible way with the right kinds of telemetry and checks and balances in place so that they can do that confidently. So a lot of my perspective is through the lens of trying to provide responsibility and frameworks around these tools so that the sort of risk and uncertainty is mitigated. I think that what we're seeing is that we're in the middle of this big bubble of uncertainty right now, where change is very dramatic. There's some part caution, part really not wanting to miss this wave of change and make the best business decisions that can radically transform your use cases. And I think what we see is a spectrum of things where, some companies are doing really amazing things that are where they've identified friction points for their users. Like, for some of the orgs that we work with, their users might need to frequently access extensive policy documentation. And that's historically been a friction point for those users. And it's like a fantastic application for generative AI where now they can just have a conversation with a chatbot, and the chatbot can think about the 200 pages of documentation and give them the precise answer that they need. Like that reduces friction, makes that person's life a lot easier, right? We also see these that don't want to miss the boat. Here's an application that's not very well suited to generative AI, but we're going to shoehorn it into generative AI. And, I think that end users can see through that stuff sometimes. There's lots of things that when you're presented with a chatbot, you're like, no, I just want to cancel my cable subscription or something like that. Like I don't need to talk to the thing, right? And we're also going to see those kind of superficial uses where it's not the best solution. And I guess my message is about think about it. And in lots of cases, if you identify the right user and the right friction point, this is an amazing tool to change personalization. But it's not like a one size fits all sort of recipe where you can just dump it in and magically your users are going to be engaged. It takes some care. You need to find the right use cases to do it right.
I think it's a great point, and I think all three of you presented, and Josh, actually you opened many areas which will go deep dive. Some of the safety and governance aspects, and I think the right use of agents, if you will. With that, I think you talked about your businesses. I would go in any sequence, if you were. This year has been an year of agents, AI agents. Are any of the AI agents, are there some you would like to talk about how they are transforming your business, if you will? Or that you'll put in production or put in practice?
So I do think, agentic AI is big. And I think the first steps that we're seeing in that direction are, orgs that are essentially transforming their quote unquote traditional RAG chatbots into agentic frameworks. So I think for a lot of orgs, I don't know that I'm going to be able to speak to spectacular or sophisticated use of agents. I have seen some things, those tend to be in the domain of kind of bespoke startups that are building apps that are like building a real agentic application. Often is sort of outside the purview of the teams in large orgs who are rolling out the first things. And so I think for the last year or so, the first places those sophisticated applications are coming out is, just bespoke startups. I have a friend who worked for a travel app company and, they built something beautiful that was agentic but it was a full-time development effort for 10 people to get that thing off the ground. I think in terms of orgs that are larger orgs and are deploying Gen AI, I think what we see right now is this transition from more ad hoc RAG use cases that are implemented using just script timing together to agentic frameworks, and they're building this comfort level with, okay, this is where the tooling is going. We're going to build it in the agentic way. So I think we're just at the cusp of sort of large orgs using somewhat standardized tooling now that will allow them to reach into agentic things. But again, it's all very use case specific. Like, don't throw agents at, something where you're just trying to pick an opening in a calendar schedule to get your, dryer repaired or something like that.
Great.
So there is the big hype in terms of agents. And what we are trying to do is to manage the hype with reality. So there are multiple dimensions to the reality. One is the governance aspect that he talked about, right? Are we just giving away things we shouldn't be giving away? Are we exposing ourselves to risk which we shouldn't be exposing ourselves to? So that's one aspect we are still trying to figure out how to get guardrails in place. The second aspect is about, hey, anything and everything, if you throw an AI agent, can it work? That's the hype. The reality is different. So we have to figure out where agentic AI can be applied, where it cannot be applied. So we are doing experimentation on the use cases. And then the third aspect is the investment aspect. It's not like we have unlimited amount of investment that we can pour into this. We can, shift investments, but there is still the reality of how much we can do. And that's where the prioritization, one of the other panels we're talking about, the prioritization, ruthless prioritization come into play, because this need to be aligned to the business KPIs and outcomes, not just, hey, we have a nice agentic AI that will do something, but it's a nice to have. So those are the three aspects that I want to add here.
We're only in March, right? This is supposed to be the year of agentic AI, so you're still early, you're Q1. But who isn't doing agentic, right? In a sense. But I think we all know the reality and the hype. But from a scientific point of view, there's actually a very particular approach my group and we're approaching, which is if you think about how most people use LLM in general, right? Whatever your favorite flavor may be, is what we would call a poll. You ask it to do something. You're like, tell me about this, or summarize, do something, right? Where intelligence and how we think about agentic is it should be push, not pull. Just like email, right? Who all of us are still getting push emails. So what we mean is the agent should know where in the user journey somebody is. Agent should know that you're all in San Francisco right now. So if you're going to go back or go to the next place, probably you might want to take San Francisco Airport or San Jose Airport, right? So some people think of it personalization. What we think of it as default things that the AI agent is able to understand about the customer and already fill it out, but the customer always have a choice to override it. So it's not pull, but push. So that's the way we're thinking about it.
No, I think a fantastic point there, Kevin. And I think we'll pick up on that for this group, because I think some of our leaders in this group will also be interested in this, like that intent-driven AI agent, like how they really, as we are developing, thinking about AI, is it just going to be mechanical, or is it going to understand the person who is interacting with it and can it respond? So any thoughts in what you are thinking about and the design of your products?
Is this to me first?
Yeah, anyway.
You go first.
We should go in random order, so now it's your turn.
Okay.
So what I would say is that we talk about agents as autonomous, but right now we are at a place where human intervention is critical. We cannot take out the human intervention aspect of it and the feedback aspect of it. I'll give you an example. Let's say you want to fill out a website, web form with some information. It's not going to be just a simple web form. There's going to be multiple aspects of it as you go through and fill out the forms. Agentic AI potentially can fill out the form, but there is that reasoning aspect that comes into play. There is also other optimization aspects comes into play when a human goes in and fills out the form. So unless you have that feedback loop where the agent learns and experiments and learns from the human feedback loop, it's not going to be optimal or best. So that's what I would say. The human feedback loop is critical for any agentic AI.
Great point.
I think kind of before we talk about intent, I think it's important to think a little bit about where these models really shine, right? And that's when you have sort of very disparate information on the input side, right? Like we sort of learned to make things like classifier models that work pretty well on unstructured text. But imagine you have a model that you want to reason about an entire customer history, right? Say you have an internal agent that is trying to, or an internal generative AI application that's trying to help your sales team expand contracts to your existing customers who all have very unique customer profiles. For this many years, this many touch points. Some customers might be great customers, but they don't require any touch points. Some maybe you've only had them for a few years and they require a lot of support, and here are all these support calls. We have this marvelous tool now for taking some very wide variety of disparate information. It doesn't need to be structured, right? There's no schema necessary. You don't have to distill it down to some sort of human level features. I think that the use cases where this stuff really shines is when, the kind of awareness over entire customer history I guess this gets back to intent and kind of the proactive applications, right? It's when you can say, here's how you've interacted with our company, or here's how you've interacted with this data over some extensive history. And that personalization can be, very sophisticated and nimble in how it processes that disparate input. So, I think before you get to intent, thinking about the applications where this stuff is really appropriate, I think that's where it starts, and then I think the direction the intent is coming from can be a lot of different ones.
No, it is well said. I think defining where exactly we want to make an impact, and then I think defining the intent. So I think great points. I think any conversation on AI will not be complete if we don't talk about governance and safety, and I think that may be one of the questions on our leaders' minds as well. So we'll go over that governance safety before opening for Q&A for this panel. So with that, any one of our panelists would like to take on how you are addressing governance safety in your systems?
Oh, to me? Is that with a random number? That was a random number. I'm happy to talk about it.
This is not random. This is mapping because you're the governance person.
It's random, but it's deterministic. We set the random seed already. So this governance question is really important, right? We've come out of this period of organizations writing blank checks to AI science teams to just go and play and figure out where value is going to be. I think we're emerging into a domain when, it becomes really important to show A, that there is business value associated with the applications you develop, and B, that whatever the application is, it's not going to throw away a lot of money, embarrass your organization, that it has good traction with users. And I think the only way you get I come from the science side, right? I like developing models. I like developing weird applications. I think I have to think about building governance as I'm building the application. So that is, instrumenting my application with the right telemetry so that, I'm able to justify A, its safety factor, and B, its business impact to, people upstairs who are responsible for large portfolios of models. So the better I can have my model instrumented and presented in a format that, my executives can interpret, and I can interpret myself, right? The better I have a handle on risk and business value. And so I think that increasingly inserting telemetry, inserting governance needs to happen at the model development stage. I don't think you just get to throw something at the wall in the world that we're emerging into. And I would just also add that, as a developer of a platform that sort of aims to provide the dashboards for this kind of instrumentation, I think it's really exciting to think about the telemetry problems that come with generative AI. I know we're spending a lot of time figuring out how to instrument agents so that you can just stream data into the telemetry platform without worrying about setting the right schema. I mean, the interesting thing about agents is they follow some computational graph that may run to run be different, right? And so you don't get to stuff it all into a spreadsheet like we could with predictive ML. So, I think, there are really interesting problems, and I think there are good solutions emerging for how, the right tooling to instrument these things that's sort of low friction and gives you the right visibility into what your application is delivering.
From my perspective, there are a couple of things, a couple of dimensions of this. One is offense versus defense in terms of the applications that you use or use cases. The defense mechanism everybody knows about. One is, hey, are we following the right regulations? Are we following the right contractual guidelines? All the risks are mitigated, things like that. So those are table stakes that you have to take care of in any kind of use case. The offense is a little bit more involved because it depends on the use case. Let's say you're doing some monetization with your data. The governance there has to be much more highly regulated or much more stringent than, let's say, you're using the data internally. And the other thing that I want to mention is that there is a close connection between how you govern data and how you govern AI. Though these go hand in hand and they cannot be silos. So you got to have that real connection within the enterprise, how you govern data and AI together.
Fantastic. I think that's so great, wonderful. I mean, I think certainly good to hear from Kevin, Gopal, and Joshua. All three of you presented a lot of good views around AI, how it is being impacted, the user intent, the use case, and also the governance. With that, I'll open up to the group. Our wonderful panelists are here. Maybe you can go ahead with your questions. Yeah, please go ahead.
So you talked about
If you like to speak on the mic.
That's it. I think you can hear me, right? So you're talking about the governance framework between data governance and AI governance, right? I know it can't be siloed, but how do you think it can be handled or managed at your company or overall your perspective?
So when you talk about data governance or AI governance, there are multiple pieces to it. There is a legal piece to it. There is a information security piece to it. There is a data security classification, information management piece to it. There is the overall data egress, ingress piece to it, and things like that. The same thing applies to AI. The way in which I define this is you got to have the Lego blocks of the data governance in place to have the AI governance on top of it. If you don't have the fundamentals of data governance in place, irrespective of what you do at the AI governance level, you're going to have major gaps. So each one of those blocks need to have an AI component to it when you build this block step by step. And so, for example, let's say data privacy. Okay, you have a data privacy block. AI, again, the privacy, you're taking it at a higher level in terms of, hey, can we use this data for building models and the analytics portion of it, the outcome of that AI model or Gen AI, is that something we are violating a consent, as an example, for a consumer? So it feeds off these things. Same thing with regulations. We have the CCPA as an example, which is the building block, or GDPR, which is the building block for the EU AI Act, which structures the AI into the risk categories as well. Each one of these things you can go through, but you got to build it block by block at the data governance level and then connect it to the AI governance level. That's how I have done it, and that's how I would recommend doing it.
The main thing that you can add the metadata, whether this can be used for AI, every metric. That's a great add. Thank you.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So I have a question. So this is regarding the agents. So there are two approaches to building the agents. One is like you pick a purpose-built agent from certain company which is building a very purpose-built agent for a certain use case, or you could go with, say, ServiceNow, a bunch of agents, or Salesforce, and every company is trying to make their own agents. The issue with all of that is they are purpose-built but unique. So there is a possibility that now in your enterprise, you will have collection of all of these agents, which are not necessarily talking to each other and not necessarily working cohesively in a connected enterprise type of way. The other approach is a little different. So what's your view on that? And how are you guys thinking about it?
I'll just add one piece to this. There are companies now that will build agents for you, irrespective of whether it's purpose or generic as well. Oh, you're one of those companies. Okay.
So I'm getting a signal that we are almost about the time. Maybe one last question. Yeah.
Let me address that.
Yeah.
So I think LLMs, I really like that generative AI without the generative part. Meaning, it actually captures user intent and semantics really well. We no longer have to train or teach that customer interaction piece. So there's research from Berkeley and also there where it says you need to think about LLM as an orchestration level and then figure out which agent to call or which function to call. So as a function director or orchestrator, it's perfect. If you're expecting it to do everything correctly, probably not so perfect. So I think just understanding where these technologies come in, where its strength is, and use it. So one of the things I wanted to say is our human domain expertise don't go away. And creating the problem statement is, I think, where we really shine as a species and everything. And then the AI can automate the solution. But if we don't understand the domain, we don't understand how it should be solved, then AI will do random things. So I think that's the way I would think about it.
Excellent. Any more questions? Okay, last question, please. Yeah, Madhuri.
Yeah, my question is for Kevin because he made an interesting comment when we were grabbing food together. He's like, when you're thinking AI, you're thinking bits and bytes, and then atoms are going to come and kick your ass. So when you're dealing with industries that have to do with atoms, energy, or the human body, or do you think we should have a different strategy on how AI can play a role versus industries where bits and bytes are going to do magic, like finance industry? Everything is virtual now, right? There is no physical existence to dollars, although cash exists, but meaningless. So, what's your opinion?
I think AI is one of those interesting times, right? There's a Chinese proverb, may you live in interesting times, and they say it's a curse. So it's one of those things where it really pulls everything in, like neuroscience, everything about us, human interaction, right? What does it mean to be intelligent? But I would even go so far to say, actually, AI is asking us, what does it mean to be human? What makes you unique? Are you actually unique? Are you sure you're unique? Right? So I think for me, being a religious person and stuff like that, look at the ancient scriptures and what it says about human condition and what it means to be human, right? So I think the world of atoms, there's a lot of, I know I'm going to throw in things that maybe CDOs are not useful, but these days, trauma and things like that. There's a book called Body Keeps the Score, if you know. So all that's mental stuff, it shows up. So I think ultimately this world of atoms is where the true value of everything we do should appear. It's really easy to create something in a virtual reality, but can you actually affect this reality? And I think the fact that all of those confluence of research, religion, everything is coming together in this AI era is what's really exciting for me. And hopefully it's not too interesting for the rest of humanity, then we can get through it safely.
I think it has been a fascinating discussion, and I really appreciate all the panelists here for their viewpoints. Wonderful questions that came up. I mean, that made this panel more lively. So thank you so much.